and how I got into this weird space of agile marketing. I was a marketer for over 15 years and really enjoyed my life as a marketer. Went on, I had 3 kids in 3 years, 3 kids in 4 years. See, my brain doesn't work after 3 kids in 4 years. That are now tweens and teens. But during that time, I took on a role as a college marketing adjunct professor. And I did that for a while until my husband said, you know, being a part-time adjunct professor is great, but it really doesn't pay very well. So it's time to go back and find your next kind of thing in life. And so he worked in IT and said, have you thought about getting into the IT space, doing project management? Because you have a marketing management background, it's probably pretty close transferable skills. And so I got hired at a software development company. And at that time, my main clients were ad agencies and end clients. And they were working in a very fragmented way. And they had 3 different companies, right? We have a software company, we have an ad agency, and then we have kind of the end client, the marketing brand. And no one was talking to each other, and everything was hair on fire. And the kind of work that they did was a lot of promotional updates on the websites and things like that. And I had a colleague actually teaching me about Agile, and this was probably about 8 years ago. And it just really made sense to me coming from marketing. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like, there's a name for this. This feels like how I've always worked. It's very collaborative and interactive, and it just makes sense. So my first experience without even knowing anything about what I was doing in Agile was to ask my ad agency to, hey, let's kind of come up with a backlog and let's write some backlog items and let's prioritize these things and think about what you really need to do. And then when we have an emergency, we'll have to, see, is that really an emergency? Is it more important than this other thing? And then the second thing that I experimented with at the time was doing a joint sprint review with the software team, the ad agency, and the end client all in one room every single week and showing them what we did. And I found that this really worked, and it kind of sold me on the whole idea of Agile. Needless to say, 8 years later, I made that my business instead of being a marketer or a project manager. I'm like, Agile is my business. And I took a CSM class about 8 years ago. And in that, the trainer started telling me about all like how you can go from being a Scrum Master to an Agile coach to a trainer and sort of this path. And I kind of had that aha moment of, it's exactly what I want to do. And I was just really, really excited about it. And so part of where I got started, it was really hard to break into IT when you come from marketing and come from outside that world. But I started a blog called scrummom.com, and I started experimenting with Scrum at home and using it with my kids to manage things and kind of take that concept outside of IT. And it sort of caught on and gained a bit of a following. And it was not anything I meant to brand myself as. It just was catchy and it caught on. So I went from there, and I did a lot of, the traditional thing, being a Scrum Master for IT teams, working my way into Agile Coach, and then starting as a trainer where I did it as a coach informally, and then getting into training. About 2 years ago, I said, I think marketers are finally ready for Agile. Now, keep in mind, about 8 years ago when I started this Agile path, I had a colleague that I knew who had really been trying to do Agile marketing in the Bay Area, and Agile marketers, I should say, were like, we're not ready for this. We're not accepting it. Our process works fine. We like our marketing plan that we've written for the next 5 years. And so there wasn't really the market adaptation. The last couple of years, I've really seen that kind of changing. As you all know about business agility in this group, right? I think that's kind of like the Agile 2.0, right? We've sort of gone beyond the realm of software teams into this whole business agility space. So I decided to really focus in my company back to my own roots, which is marketing. And so I teach a lot of marketers how to be agile, and I train and coach them. And and that's what I do. I've also ironically found my way back into marketing as well. So I was trained as a journalist, and I recently interviewed Bruce for a business agility article. So I do some freelance kind of content marketing things as well, and I like that because I'm kind of keeping my feet wet in both places, and practicing what I preach there as well. So moved from Minnesota to Raleigh, North Carolina a couple of years ago, and I have, like I said, 3 children who are 15, 13, 10, and married, and I have 3 cats. So that's a little bit about me. I really enjoy what I do in the agile marketing space. Has anyone heard the term VUCA before? Bruce has heard it, and Thomas has heard it, and
I know Joe has.
Yeah. Joe's heard it. All right. So when I first started training marketers about Agile, we started exploring, in the Agile marketing community really started exploring what's the fundamental reason that that marketers need to be Agile, right? And we came up with this VUCA paradigm, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it's basically saying that the world around us is really unpredictable. Would you say that's true right now? We are living in the most VUCA world I have ever seen. And I, by nature, am a total planner. So even though I'm an agilist, my tendency is I want to know what's going to happen. Like this whole idea of, I don't know what life will bring tomorrow and how I'm going to respond to that. But the world around us is sort of forcing us to do that, whether we like it or not. So what's happening in the marketing space, definitely with digital marketing, social media, all these things that are much more personalized to customers, they need to be more responsive. They need to be two-directional, right? We're communicating and having personalization with our customers. We are no longer in a space where we can sit behind, our big executive table, plan out our 5-year marketing plan, and push it out to our customers. It does not work anymore. And Josephine, feel free to add. I know you're a marketer too. Do you find that to be true in your world?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And in the product development space, it's a whole lot more complex because you've got longer timelines, but you still have to be super responsive to customers, and they just won't adopt.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you do. And so the way marketing organizations in larger companies have typically worked hadn't changed much in 30 years, right? We're still managing the process of how we do marketing in a very, very old way. And our world around us is no longer that same world. And so I think marketers are finally coming to this realization, like, what is this Agile thing? Now, there's a couple different realizations and I would say myths out there. Some of them think it's just to go faster. You heard that one before, anyone? Even if you're not in marketing, right? Like, it's just to go faster. We just want to go faster. Most marketers I know are going way too fast as it is. In fact, it's almost the opposite paradigm. They're just pushing things out there. They're throwing content at the wall, seeing what sticks. They're very deadline driven. They're just trying to kind of keep up and tread water and be responsive, but not in a very strategic, thoughtful way, which Agile can help us do. Now, on the total opposite end of that spectrum, I have worked with marketing organizations, and I've particularly seen this in the financial services industry, where their internal processes are killing them. They're absolutely killing them. So I had a bank that I worked with that said, we need 12 different people to sign off on a social media post. Think about that one for a minute. Is your customer going to wait till you route that through everyone internally to make sure it's perfect? Does your customer even care? Right. So really big problems in that way in some of these larger very traditionally run organizations with marketing. They're very top-down driven. The plan is thought of. It's very tight. It's pushed down to the team. The team, kind of like the code monkey in software, they become the creative sort of like just throw things out. And so they've realized this, that they have to change. And guess what marketing is about? The customers. It is not about our internal processes. It's not about the boardroom. So marketing is all about outside in decision making, and Agile does that for us, right? Our quick feedback loops allow us to do more outside in decision making. And when we can use things to get information about how our customers respond and use those iteratively to build upon our marketing, do you think we resonate better with what our customers want? Probably. Yeah, probably, right? So we're getting away from pushing out marketing to getting little pieces of marketing delivered faster for faster feedback. So another problem, and I think a number of you are part of the software teams, is what happens when your software team can rapidly produce software and is very agile, but your marketing team can't market it, right? It takes too long. I had this happen in a company that I was coaching, and their software team, particularly like their website team, I should say, was really good about getting their website features built, and they were pretty agile and they were pretty quick. And they came to me and they're like, Stacey, what do I do? Like, we're super agile. We go to market. We want to market a new feature. It goes in the queue. They have to replan. It's top down, and it's months and months and months. And so now we've built this product, and all about software development is recognizing value. But if nobody knows the value is there because our marketing teams aren't caught up with agility, we have a really big problem. Have any of you experienced that, where you're working on a software team where the marketing team is not agile?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Pretty much, right? Because this is started in software. And I think it's funny because, as you all know, Agile has nothing to do with software. It's just the software people popularized it. And they saw a need, and, they wrote the first Agile manifesto. There's an Agile Marketing manifesto that was done about 10 years ago. But we have this notion that this is just for our software teams, and as Agile practitioners, you all know, right? It's so much more than that. It's a company culture, and we all have to be agile in order to have that recognized customer value sooner. We can't just have it be one department in the company. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the differences in adoption that I'm seeing with marketers when it comes to Agile. So the first, big piece of resistance is always, that's the software people's thing. It doesn't apply to us. And there's some nuances, yes, that are definitely different. But fundamentally, right, Agile is Agile, right? We're aligning in principles and values and rapid delivery and rapid feedback, things like that. But one of the things, we have some research that's been done in the Agile marketing field, is that marketers want to be more framework agnostic. They are a little less likely to do things by the book. And so I'm not saying this is right, this is wrong, this is whatever. I kind of firmly believe that fundamentally be agile and sort of understand and learn the frameworks that are out there, and be smart and do what works for you. But Scrum Bon, so to speak, is probably what we're seeing most commonly, where they're taking sort of that hybrid approach to framework. If it's a really smaller company, an agency, or what I would say almost a creative services team, content marketing team that's supporting teams, Kanban is probably the way they're more leaning. If they're a very large corporate marketing department that's been very traditionally run, they tend to gravitate more towards Scrum, is what I'm seeing, with the majority of them sort of picking and choosing pieces. I have found, because I've coached a lot of software teams and I've coached a lot of marketing teams, they're a little bit more like, don't put me in the box and don't give me a lot of rules. So there's sort of that creative mentality, that if you are coaching or trying to get marketers on board, you have to just be mindful of that, right? You have to kind of meet them where they're at. We hear a lot about like the Scrum police, and they're telling us this isn't by the rules, and marketers really don't respond very well to that. So just have to be careful in how we're teaching them about Agile. Another thing that I'm really seeing in the field is a single role called a marketing owner, which is really sort of taking on that hybrid role of Scrum Master and product owner. And I'm not going to argue like whether this is good or bad. I'm kind of just presenting what it is, right? Because I know that we can have a lot of heated debates of what we should do or what we shouldn't do. This is just what how the market is adapting Agile marketing very commonly. Now, part of it, I think, is a lack of really understanding the frameworks. So if you don't know what a Scrum Master is or does, or you see value in it, you're not going to spend the money to hire one, right? So that's part of it. I'm starting to see a greater trend going a little bit more towards Scrum and a little bit more on seeing that value, but I think it's very slow. I would say marketers really started almost like no framework, and now they're sort of starting to kind of get into it a little bit more. They kind of started with like, we're going to call ourselves Agile because we wrote a book. We read a book and we're Agile, and so it was really kind of very loose to begin with, and it's kind of making its way down sort of the more mature path. Marketing owner is a common role we see. This is a Stacey Ackerman made-up terminology, but you might start hearing it because I'm teaching a lot of people this. You're all familiar with user stories, correct? Okay, so user stories are great. I love them in concept. I love them in theory. But to me, the word user stories just kind of feels like, right, user of a system, and you're thinking about it from really a website, right? I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this. And this is how I use a piece of technology. So the customer story format that I've been training people on is from my journalism roots. And it's really just saying the who, what, why. Same sentence structure, same thing, but I want them to start thinking about it. Who's your customer? What work are you doing for them? And why are you doing this work from them? Now, most marketers absolutely hate any kind of process. And so we really want to keep it very, very simple when trying to get them to adapt some of these concepts. And we also want to make it very relevant to their world. And so this concept seems to resonate a bit better. Now, I still have to sometimes get marketers out of the really high level space here where they're starting to like, analyze things from a really broad view and bring it down to like, this is really about a press release. and trying to get them into that smaller piece of work. But it's coming along, and they seem to be gravitating towards this concept. So you've all heard of minimally viable product? Yep. So we have a few other minimally viable things that we're talking about in the marketing space. The first one is called minimally viable persona. And a persona, a lot of you have done this if you've worked in the product space, but a persona, right, is we're kind of describing a typical customer and the demographics around that customer, maybe the hobbies, the interests, etc. Now, if you think about traditional requirements documents in software development, they can be what? They're a stage gate, right? Stage gating process, right? We spend a lot of upfront thinking traditionally on requirements documents. Well, one thing that marketers do is spend a lot of upfront thinking about personas. So they can get into the analysis paralysis piece here, right? They love like doing all the research and thinking about the perfect persona. And so the concept that we're teaching here around minimally viable personas is you probably have enough data about your customer to make some assumptions that you can sit down with your team and map out, and that you keep this a living, breathing document that you keep iterating on. So the more you get your marketing out there, the more you're learning about this persona. You're going to then elaborate on the persona instead of the upfront requirement of we are going to know everything about our persona first. See how we're flipping that a little bit, just in a marketing way. The second piece is a minimally viable campaign. Okay, same idea as a minimally viable product. It's campaigns. So traditionally, marketers will do what we call a big bang campaign, right? We have a date. We are going to launch everything on this date, and we're going to throw it out on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and a TV commercial, and it's all going to go out on July 15th. Can we learn anything from that? Do you think? Would you learn anything? Probably not.
It may be a very expensive lesson if you do.
An expensive lesson, right? Right. It's the same concept as if we launched our product in a big bang too, right? It's the same idea. So we're trying to gravitate towards the idea of a minimally viable campaign or a micro campaign. So several small experiments over one large bet. The other minimally viable thing that we're trying to do in marketing is briefs. And I call them the brief. The brief. A brief is similar as well to a requirements document. It's typically done around creative and creative strategy, and it's usually very specified on, you know, I want this dimension and this font, and I want this kind of image, and it can be really it can stifle creativity to the team, basically, right? They're handed this document, they have to follow it very specifically, and it's too precise, it's too much upfront thinking. So there's a template that I've shown to marketers. It's just called a brief. Just you know, start thinking things a little bit high level. What's kind of your goal of this project? Who is your target market on this project? Maybe what's the budget? And so we can get into those kinds of things without being overly prescriptive.
Hey, Stacey.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. When you, because with the smaller batch communication style of, you know, if marketing takes this approach, there's always the balance, because one of the common challenges that we hear is obviously, you know, is how much how much change the customer can actually absorb, right, at these intervals. I mean, do you hear some of those same challenges, and how do you overcome them with this approach? Because, you know, when you look at this, and if you break up those campaigns, then it's potentially you're communicating with the customer every couple of weeks, every month. And is that, you know, what sort of flow do you try to really achieve to kind of reach that balance of just inundating the customer with so much information on a high frequency basis versus kind of the just enough?
Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah. I don't know that it's necessarily changing the frequency of the customer. It might be like all the same campaign elements, you're just not getting them all out at once. So let me break this down for you a little bit. Say in my marketing campaign, I want to do a blog post, and I'm going to do something on Facebook, and I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to do a webinar. Okay. Instead of doing them all together and we wait until we've perfected all of those things and we kind of do them at once, we're going to test and learn. So we're going to do this test and learn concept. So I might start with what is the fastest to market thing, and maybe that's a Facebook post, right? I can get that out there. I can test the content, and I can understand how my market is responding to that before I decide which other things I'm going to need. And then we can stop when it's enough. So I can say, all right, we've kind of hit our goal with what we're trying to do in our marketing. We maybe don't need to do everything. We can stop, right, at any time. Now, when I was working with a team that was just getting new into Agile marketing, they had an agency that they forgot to tell their agency about Agile. And big mistake. So the agency came to them with very well-baked plans and said, we're doing 12 travel articles, and here's what each one is doing, and we're going to put them in the backlog, and we are set on doing these 12 travel articles. Well, what we're not doing in this is saying, what did we learn from it, right? And how do you know you need 12, right? You might hit your goal in 3 or 4 and you're done and you can stop. Or your messaging in these articles might be so off the mark, but if you've baked them all together, written them all, and then you're just, sending them out, you're not learning. So what we're basically saying is you're gonna kind of piece by piece get things out so you can learn instead of blasting it. Did I answer your question, Bruce?
Yeah, that was good. Thanks.
I think one of the other Agile opportunities is to look at the concept of segmentation more closely in marketing. And email marketers do this pretty well with like A/B testing, where they go out and they send multiple formulations of a message to different groups of people to see which one's going to fly before they send it more broadly. But there are real opportunities to start, especially with data, to start thinking more discreetly about who your customers are and how to message them much more individually.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Great point.
So have you also found, you kind of hinted on this a little bit, but, some things are really hard and expensive to change, like TV commercials, for example. That's an expensive investment. You can't really sort of pivot those as easily. How have you seen people sort of balance the expensive assets versus the, less, the easier?
You stole my story. You're 3 slides ahead, but I'm going to give you an example of a TV commercial.
All right. Well, I can wait. I'm patient.
No. It's fine. I don't care. I'm going to be agile. I can flip to that. I'm totally cool.
Daniel is notorious for that, and he's not patient. Don't believe that.
No worries.
Both of the things Bruce said are true, but I'm trying.
So I've had a few people from Fidelity come through my classes. They have marketing in all areas. Agile in marketing and IT. And I interviewed their head of their Agile transformation for a story. And one example he gave me, which was really helpful, was a TV spot. So they wanted to launch a really big TV spot for one of their financial products. I can't remember what it was. And so they used a test and learn mindset. The last thing they did was the TV spot. That was absolutely not the first thing. So the first thing they did was they tested an assumption. And their first assumption was our target market of middle-aged people is going to love 80s music. So their first iteration was really all about 80s music and testing that out and asking their customers and getting that in the marketplace in a very test way, right? Of can we validate this assumption? And they're like, yes, we like 80s music. So that worked. And so then they would develop just a small piece of it on YouTube. Is YouTube cheap? Pretty easy to do. Anyone can do it, right? Low cost. Can you get feedback from people on it? Sure. So guess what? Now you can go out there, do something like that, test it. You could test kind of like you said, ABC, right? A couple different options. Is this working? Let's do a few different snippets on our YouTube channel, see how it works. All right. They've then validated some of their assumptions around their messaging as well. And so then sort of their final iteration is then that TV spot. And then the philosophy behind it is by the time they go pay for that very expensive TV spot, they're pretty confident that they're making a less risky bet that was worth their money to do because they've done a lot of testing and learning along the way. So that's the theory of it. What's that shortest way? And in marketing, it's pretty easy to do that, right? Like, you know, content you can test in very inexpensive places. They also, before they did the full launch as well, they had a friends and family group. So they would invite their friends and family to then, you know, have a test spot heard. Then they, you know, launched it. So there were a lot of steps in between. Very good question, though. So one thing when you are working with marketing, if you're coaching them or trying to work with them, is trying to avoid some of the IT jargon. And I put some of these fun jargon words up there. It was interesting too. I just did a CSM for marketers the last 2 days in a collaboration with a CST who's from software and me from marketing. And it was so funny because we're trying to blend these two worlds together in one class. And it was actually pretty cool. But I heard him coming through with the IT jargon quite a bit. And I was like, most marketers don't know what that means. So you have to be very mindful of that when we're talking to marketers, because it's the IT jargon that coming through that makes them think Agile isn't for them. So here are some friendly marketing terms so, that are all about Agile. And I think the biggest challenge is if you're coaching or doing any kind of, or, you know, Agile transformation, you try to go from IT to marketing, you really have, you know what you're doing and you know how you're getting there and where you're driving them to. And I think fundamentally it's not different. But the approach and the language is, and there's small nuances, but those things can be a little bit different. Target's another large company that has put a lot of money and time and effort into Agile marketing as well as Agile in all areas. They've approached it in a less framework specific way. I should back up that Fidelity is doing Scrum, 2-week sprints, same as the rest of their organization. And Target marketers are doing a little bit more the hybrid approach, but their big sort of approach to Agile marketing is their dojo. If you're not familiar with a dojo, it's like a boot camp where they go through and they learn Agile and they keep going through these different classes. And then the idea is that they're then spreading that knowledge out to the rest of their organization. So they're kind of heavily relying on their dojo to do Agile marketing as well. So that's Target. One thing to know is that marketers are really early adapters phase of their Agile journey. So if you think back to where software was probably 10, 15 years ago at least, that's where they are. So when we're speaking to marketers about Agile, especially if we're coming in and trying to help them transform, we have to be really mindful of that place that they're in. And it is really, I would say it's kind of, you know, like the 5-year-old versus, you know, the uncle, right? Like they're kind of young, they're still a little bit naive on this journey and they're still learning. So there's some misconceptions out there. I feel like they still think it's a process, right? We're going to go and we're going to learn the process and we're going to walk away and we're going to implement the process. So explaining to them that it's really a cultural transformation is really necessary. And also, I think some of the benefits of trying a proven framework, whichever one you might choose, and trying to get them a little bit away from like we went faster, we're agile. So there's still some of that culture in that early adoption phase as well that I'm seeing out there. So a lot of education still to be done, but a lot of big companies are transitioning marketing teams, and more are getting there. So it's kind of an exciting time. If you are working with a marketing team and you want to get them to try Agile, here are some easy things that I've found that you can do without kind of blowing up the whole thing and making them feel overwhelmed by it. And I think you take the Agile approach and start experimenting small. So even taking the idea of the Agile Marketing Manifesto and doing some kind of facilitation around that. Here's what the values are. Do you think we adhere to these values? Do we not adhere to them? You can do that with a team. It's a really good way to start getting them to understand what those things are. If you haven't seen the Agile Marketing Manifesto, it's agilemarketingmanifesto.org. And it's similar to the Agile Software Manifesto, but once again, the language has been tweaked a little bit to be more relevant to marketers. Creating a backlog, and one backlog per team, that is sometimes a huge lifesaver and game changer for a marketing team, because marketers are really fragmented. They're running 100 miles an hour. And to be able to have work in one single place and sort of understand all that intake of work can be a really easy thing that they're willing to try that can make a really big difference to them. And the third thing is that visibility piece on work, that transparency, whether it's just, getting something in a collaboration tool for everyone on the team to see. Most of them are still working in their own silos and don't always have those collaboration tools or visibility into each other's work. And so that can be a really good starting place. I also find the daily stand-up, pretty easy to do, right? Like stand up, start communicating, right? Start talking about your work together, and the retrospective. And I would say when I'm seeing people adopt early Agile marketing, they might be just starting a few of these things, some of these things, maybe not all of them. So they're sort of starting it in pieces. And I think that's okay. You have to start somewhere. And we don't want to scare them off by being like, here you go, you have to do it exactly like software does, because that's not going to work. But the goal is to try to lead them down that path, because we know it's really effective. So I think you have to kind of meet marketers where they are, and then nudge them a little bit more, just like we would any area. I do have the Marketer's Ultimate Guide to Getting Started with Agile that I wrote. There's a free download on my website, so I encourage you to take a read of that. It's sort of a compilation of kind of all the lessons I've learned from doing this, and share it with your marketing teams if they're looking to get started, and connect with me. And I'll just open it up to other questions right now.
Is anyone who all is currently working with a marketing team, either as an active role on the marketing team or as a Scrum Master for a marketing team? And I'm looking at you, Jane. That's a bit of a loaded question there, a little bit. Jane actually is from Jane is from the University of Phoenix, and she's working with a marketing team now.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. That's great.
Building behind me.
How's it going for you?
It's going well. So, we've got incredible support from our leadership, from our executive leadership. Our president wants us to be the first institution of higher ed to be fully agile. So we've got we don't have any of those issues. A lot of the things that you said, Stacey, resonate with me, that our marketing folks aren't opposed to doing this. They just don't understand it. They do think it's a process. And so we're working with them. We've got, right now, the only part of our marketing area that's really agile are the folks that work with our technology folks on the phoenix.edu website. So I'm not talking about, the TV spots and the Facebook posts and things like that. I'm just the area that I'm involved with, and as far as I know, the only area that's really doing agile is our phoenix.edu site, which is our main website, marketing site. We have 5 teams. We just restructured them this last a few weeks ago, so they're full stack, so they can do everything. We're doing a redesign of the website, and so each team is kind of taking a different area of it. And so it's going really well. It's just, there's little things. I was sharing with Bruce today that our marketing department used to have a weekly meeting where once a week they would approve designs of some of the different work that the designers are doing. And this week we started talking about, if our designers get done with their design on Friday, they have to wait till next Thursday to even get feedback on it. Can we break that down? Can we do some more ad hoc? And they were absolutely agreeable to it. Should have asked probably a while ago. So it's going really, really well, at least in this little area. So
that's great. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Yeah, and it's fun working with marketing people. They're so fun. I've been working with IT people for so long, and we did one little thing today, and the marketing, they send you so many thank yous, and it's just a different culture altogether, and it's been really fun working with them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The personalities are very different from a typical IT team, and that's why you do need to work with them a little bit differently. More extroverted, they'll probably tell you more what they think or don't like. Yeah.
I do have a question. So one of the things that we struggle with, and I'm sorry I joined late, if you talked about it, you touched upon it in terms of, not doing everything all at once. So if we want to change our homepage, for example, traditionally what we're doing is we're working ahead. The designers are working ahead because there's such a heavy process right now. So our UX folks have to build the design. We have to write content. That content has to be approved by our legal. And I don't know if anybody else has that problem. And that process, like right now, we're kicking off a process for some pages we are going to update in October.
Oh my gosh.
It's so that once we get the design, then everything is going really well, but we're still waterfalling that part of it. And I don't know how to do a little bit of design, a little bit of development, a little bit of QA in this sprint, and then add to it next time, because we just have all of these approvals and admittedly some self-induced things with the 14 people have to sign off on this before it can go. So
yeah, I mean, the 14 people signing off is definitely one issue, right? So what I would do in that case is I would start tracking cost of delay and idle time for all these sign-offs that are happening, right? So you start this project, you execute this project. How many days is it sitting on person A's desk waiting for a sign-off? Then how many on person B? How many person C? So you can start proving out to your leadership, right? There's a cost to that, right? There's a huge cost to that. And so start to speak to them in terms of money. They might go, oh yeah, maybe we can figure out a different way. So you want to start obviously minimizing the number of approvals. I've also seen legal people kind of brought into the Scrum team's work. I've even seen them sit on an Agile marketing team. That may not always be possible, but start to inform them of the backlog items and maybe when they're going to be needed, or maybe can they attend some stand-ups when they might have a sign-off, and just kind of be present, be there, and like, okay, here's this thing. Can you now sign off on it? So not always possible, but you want to try to bring them in with the team a little bit closer. And as far as the upfront design, I mean, yeah, that's a tricky problem. I think trying to get them to do more minimally viable design, and just say, let's sketch an idea versus a fully baked, fully approved, phased out design, and saying we're going to keep, iterating on this while we're building.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
I think one of the ceremonies that's really powerful and maybe underused is demos.
Yeah, we definitely do those. Every 2 weeks without fail.
Great.
Great.
Daniel, I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah, just one more idea, which works for legal and a lot of other divisions, is try to really, anytime someone needs to approve something, see if you can pivot the approval to something that's a little bit more empowering. So for example, can they produce 4 rules or guidelines? That means they don't have to approve everything, that there's a certain percentage that as long as it fits in these guidelines, they don't have to approve it.
That's a great one. I'm going to steal that one.
Totally stealing that. Thank you.
And it might start small. It might be that 20% now they don't have to approve. But you can really build on that and continue to establish guidelines that empower people. It's an IT resource, but if you look at LESS, that's large enterprise scaled Scrum, one of its biggest focuses is killing dependencies. And there's a lot of good ideas about how to kill those dependencies, and providing guidelines or empowering is really a good one. And as a Scrum Master, the moment you hear something, the key phrases that are very dangerous of, I need to see that, I need to be involved in that, or I need to approve that. As a Scrum Master, that's when your ears need to explode. And the reason why I like some of the pages in LESS is it gives you some tools where you can say, what do you mean you need to see it? Like what are you concerned about? How do I get your concerns where the team can handle the concerns and not need you? And there's a lot of good ideas on that page. They are IT-ish, so you might have to just pivot them. But legal is actually one of the examples all through that. So we're all, of course.
That's awesome. Thank you, you guys.
And legal is a very big constraint in marketing. Absolutely, probably the biggest roadblock that they're dealing with.
Yeah, I had like the designs and whatnot, and I actually have a marketing degree, but it was 100 years ago, so I don't remember any of it. But so I'm kind of new in this space. Like the creative has to sign off on the designs. So my question is, what skills or what do they know, and do they know a lot more than the average marketing product owner that, for example, that I'm working with? Can we decentralize some of those decisions and let the product owner sign off on that? Or is there something unique or special about that creative group that they do it? Is that just a University of Phoenix thing, or is that?
No, that's a common thing, I would say. Because that's their baby, and they don't want to let their baby go. Right? And they don't want someone else to have their baby. No, I think they can still be involved, but can you have that creative person be part of the team?
Yeah. They are pretty close. There are product managers in some cases. Mm-hmm. So they're fairly close to the team.
And I think Daniel, what he said before about the closer empowerment piece, I think that could work in that as well. That same philosophy of what can we start empowering the team to own. And you have to take it in baby steps, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was sitting in a meeting probably about 2 years ago, and at the end of the meeting, 14 new approval processes had been developed in a single 1 hour meeting. And I mean, you've all been in those meetings. Oh, I need to see that. Can you involve me? It's just like my brain was exploding. My soul was being crushed, to be slightly dramatic. That's kind of when my ears perked up, and I got really passionate about dependency killing, as Thomas and a few other people can attest to. the first time, the first process I see to manage dependencies, I'm the guy on the other side being like, don't manage the dependency, kill it, get rid of it, kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the concept of bringing other people into the team is super important, because when we say full stack, especially coming out of the technology side or technology supported activities, we tend to mean full stack development or full stack production, not full stack. Who are all the people top to bottom who need to be involved to make something happen? And so rethinking what full stack means, especially in a business driven context, can be really powerful.
Yeah, I think we're getting closer to that. We have content, and again, this is just the website, not the full blown everything in marketing, but we've got content managers, we've got copywriters, designers, then the traditional IT developers or engineers who do both development and QA. We have authorers, and these are all new things to me. I'm learning so much in the last few weeks. Authorers, I don't even know if that's the right word, but people that author pages. The only things that aren't are those siloed approval areas, and then legal, who does things for a number of our sites and internal applications. So they kind of have to be on a shared services kind of a thing.
Jane, is this a complete redo, like they're building it from scratch, or are you taking an existing page and sort of changing little bits over?
We're taking pages and redoing them individually. So okay, we're not, it was funny, we hired, and again, new to me, we had hired a company that was very waterfall minded to do our design. So we actually walked into this project with designs for a huge amount of the website done. So that was, the designs were there. We just had to go in and start building the pages, but we're replacing kind of page by page. My team's looking at our programs right now, all the programs that we offer and the courses. And so we're doing that piecemeal. They would like us to do it. They really wanted us to do, let's get it all done, then do one big bang at the end. And we said, no.
So at least, yeah, you're doing that right approach then.
And we're doing a lot of A/B testing. I mean, I don't know how many, we probably have too many tests out there, but a lot of A/B testing. We're doing everything very small, doing it quick, HTML, see if it works. If it's great, then we're building maybe more of a component that can be replicated on, we have hundreds of program pages. And so I think we've got a pretty good handle on that approach.
Another good statistic, Stacey mentioned the cost of delay statistic, which is a great piece of data, would be the amount of change from all those approvals and stuff too. Like, how much are they actually changing?
Yes, I've asked that, yeah.
Is it 3 words? Is it subjective? Is it actually something that would have caused legal problems? Because we have a few places where people have agreed to let a team move forward with the content, and they actually come kind of behind and edit. So in most of the cases, they actually review it and edit before it's live on the site, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's live for a day or two, and then they'll tweak or edit, after it's been live a few days. But based on the data, the risk was really low. Like, most of the times they're not changing anything that is really risky. So, if it's live for 3 or 4 days and then they happen to tweak and edit, like, no harm, no foul. But that was another way we sort of did an unlocked dependency as well.
Yeah, that's really
Do your
good.
lawyers think they're copywriters too?
I'm sure they do.
Ours do.
I'm sure they do.
I think lawyers think they're everything. Sorry. I'm mad at my lawyers today. This is a scary topic for me.
Well,
Right?
The other thing too with that whole legal piece, if you have high level guidelines, as well, that every piece of work has to follow, right? There shouldn't be that need for approving of every tiny minutia piece, right? If we know overall, like, we need our trademark name this way, and I was a copywriter for a long time, and we have some of those standards set in place. They shouldn't have to then be checking for those things. Those should be pretty self-explanatory. So kind of some brand guidelines.
Yeah, we do it in other areas. ADA, we have a checklist of things that every page has to meet these things. We still have sign off because we've got, specialists that really understand that work, but we try to knock out as much as we can up front so we don't have the back and forth. Right. So yeah, we should be able to do that with legal and copy and the design.
Cool. Other questions at all for me?
Yeah, thank you all for the discussion. Lots of notes here.
Good. Well, if you ever, need your marketing teams to be trained or need some coaching in this area, I would love to be a resource that you think of for that, of course. Or if you just personally have a question, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email. I'm happy, to have that conversation.
Stacey, I know there's at least one person in attendance who had questions around, because you mentioned about your CSM for marketing specifically. Would you consider, because there's too many times organizations ask for that, they sort of have that IT requirement attached to being a Scrum Master. And personally, I don't give a shit. I mean, you're either a good facilitator, etc. You don't need the IT background. But for somebody who's wanting to get into sort of more of a Scrum Master role, how are you seeing kind of that? Is that another good pathway for somebody to even just get started in an Agile team who may not be coming from an IT background?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, I didn't come from an IT background at all. And, so my path in was as a Scrum Master, because project management and marketing, and then there's Scrum Master. So that was a way for me to start to make that career transition. And I think there's going to be more and more Scrum Masters needed in the marketing space, because they have what they call it coach or Scrum Master, but they have no built-in expertise typically in that area. And they need a guide, right? A lot of them have been sort of flailing around for the last 5 or 10 years trying to do little bits and pieces of Agile marketing, but they're trying to adapt it more. And so a lot of the clients that I've worked with are like, we don't even know the first thing about anyone on our team being a Scrum Master. So they are starting to send them through like a CSM class so that they can understand how that works. And I always say, whether your Agile team is doing pure Scrum or if they're doing Kanban or whatever, it's, getting a foundation of knowledge is really important. And then some people approach it more as a team member, right? You're a marketer and maybe your first step then is going to work on a team that's doing Agile already. Or someone else outside of IT. But yeah, there's a few different paths I think you can take.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of cool workshops that date's not announced yet, but I'm going to be running an online Kanban class for marketing. It's going to be a 1-day workshop. And then we are going to do the CSM in marketing again in August. So we just did it yesterday and today. That was a collaboration with someone from IT and myself, and we did it together. So it's great if great for anybody in marketing that wants to be a Scrum Master or help a team with Agile marketing and to understand Scrum. So that's good. So it's kind of fun. COVID has brought some new opportunities that I certainly did not plan for, but I'm finding like, hey, I can have all this collaboration. I just trained someone today from Belgium. I mean, it's super cool. So we're also starting to see, more of that international thing happening as well. I do have also an IC Agile Marketing class that will be happening in September. So those were sort of put on hold for a little bit. Those were a lot of the ones I did in person. Part of the business agility track with IC Agile. It's a great, great program if you know of marketers that want to do that.
And can they just get that information off your website, or do you want to send some links and I can publish it out?
Yeah, check on my website, and on my website too, there's a place you can sign up to be notified of those upcoming classes as well. And I haven't published anything beyond today's because I have been taking a very experiential approach with everything that's happened with COVID, right? My plans went right out the window. And so I've been experimenting with different kinds of classes, different kinds of formats, how we're doing this online. And so I think we're sort of kind of getting that figured out. And I call it the nail it and scale it is what I teach. So we're going to start scaling some of those things out. Definitely like August, September timeframe.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then private classes as well. So I'll, come to anyone like that has a team that wants more education around this area. And I think the biggest difference, right, is just being able to speak the speak. So the biggest complaint I've heard from marketers is I went to a class, I had to now translate all this language from IT talk. And they still can get the general idea, but it's a lot harder. So yeah, the kind of the unique spin that I have on these classes is a lot of it is simulating things as marketing campaigns. So we might go through Scrum simulating it as a marketing campaign, or we might go through Kanban flow using marketing campaigns. So it's fun. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I'm so excited that marketing is getting on board with Agile because I love marketing and I love Agile and I love seeing it kind of come together.
Yeah, very cool. Are there any other questions for Stacey? Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. And as Stacey said, everyone, go out there, connect with her. And so you can stay up to date on the Agile marketing information. And definitely, and I think that's all that we have for today. All
right. Well, it was really fun.
Thank you, Stacey.
Yeah, outside of my own town. So this is wonderful. And you're only one state away. You're not that far. So
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, and sorry. And I will publish. I did record this. I'll publish the recording and the deck out to our Memphis Agile Meetup LinkedIn page, so everyone can go out there and grab that there. Okay.
Awesome. Well, it was really nice to meet everybody. Please connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and let's keep the conversations going.
All right. Awesome.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Stacey. All right.
Stacey.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.